Hello, readers. Welcome to 20 Questions with Your Favorite Author, where we ask authors important questions like, why would you agree to be on this podcast? Our guest this week is Jonathan Maberry, a New York Times best-selling and 5-time Bram Stoker award-winning author, anthology editor, comic book writer, magazine feature writer, playwright, content creator, and writing teacher and lecturer. He was named one of today's top 10 horror writers. His books have been sold to more than 24 countries. If he's not your favorite writer now, he will be after. Welcome, Jonathan. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. That was a nice festive piece of music to bring us in here. Nice.
Why, thank you. Thank you very much. We listened to like dozens and dozens of music till we found what we liked.
Nice.
The hard work. You've done a podcast. Sometimes that's those little things that get to you, right?
Yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm. You're like, I can't remember. I must do all of these things. Well, for everyone in the audience, please post your questions and we will make sure to ask them. But I get to go first because I'm the host. So, it's my privilege. So I have the very first question, Jonathan, is where do you get your ideas?
It's one of those things, ideas are everywhere. I stoke that a little bit by, reading a lot of technical journals because I write horror, science fiction, fantasy, thrillers, and so on. So I like to base all of my fiction on a framework of something from the real world, a real plague, a real technology or something. So I read a lot of these technical journals and see all these developments that are going to hopefully enhance life for human beings. And my immediate reaction when I see them is, what's the worst that can happen? And can I write about that? Because we're not really in the habit of giving happy characters a great day. We were there to spoil things. And so those things give me a lot of ideas, technical journals. And the ones I read aren't the ones that are necessarily the ones you find in a magazine rack. They're the ones for actual people in different fields, medicine and engineering and politics and so on. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing. And the other is just looking around. I mean, if you're not a writer and you see a bird sitting on a wire over your car, you think, okay, there's a bird. If you're a writer, you're wondering what that bird's agenda is, why it's focusing on your car specifically, what it's going to do as soon as you try to get in the car. That's where our minds go. So you get into that habit and then you can't stop thinking of ideas.
Yeah, birds are a good one. There's a mockingbird that likes to sit outside of our window and torment our cat every single morning. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of stories that could come from that.
Well, they're not called mockingbirds for nothing.
That's true. Yeah, this one's definitely earned its title. I'm always tempted to let the cat out and see how funny he thinks it is now.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I won't because I don't want to clean up the feathers. Let's see. Now, you tend to flit around the horror genre. Like it's not the only thing you write, but it does seem to be your go-to. But you do cover everything under that umbrella. Like it's not just one thing, one genre that you stick to. What attracted you to horror?
Well, I got involved first in the folklore of the weird before I got involved specifically in horror. My grandmother, if you can imagine an old lady version of Luna Lovegood from the Harry Potter books, the kid who believes in everything, that's my grandmother. She believed in everything, ghosts, werewolves, vampires, the whole bit. I mean, she was totally into it and taught me a lot about that. But at the same time, she would tell me, the stories, the folkloric stories, and some of the folk tales, the fictional versions, as opposed to the beliefs, but also encouraged me to read the science and the anthropology and the commentary on why people believe that. Because, she felt that eventually we would understand that the supernatural world is really part of our natural world, just a part we haven't learned how to measure yet. That was her theory. And it's reasonable to me.
What a cool thing to grow up with.
Oh, yeah. She was the best. She was actually born on Halloween, too, which makes her even cooler. But then, from there, reading the folkloric versions of these different types of monsters, I started, of course, watching the monster movies and reading monster comics and so on. Mm-hmm. And I just fell in love with the potential for telling stories about people confronting something much bigger and much more frightening than what they're prepared for, and them having to kind of level up in order to be able to deal with that. I love that kind of, underdog against, the big bad situation. And I found that applies to a lot of different types of fiction. So a lot of my fiction, even my science fiction and fantasy, has horror elements to it because of that lifelong appreciation for all things weird that my grandmother engendered within me.
So it all went together.
Yeah.
Maya says hi, by the way. Maya Cleve is on.
Oh, hi,
She
Maya.
says hi.
I just killed her off in my latest novel.
Oh, that's always the fun part, right?
She won an auction to be killed off in my next Joe Ledger book, which will be out July 13, and she has a great heroic story arc in that book. So thanks, Maya, and the money went to a good.
That's awesome! Congratulations! Now we can't wait to read it. We all know Miss Maya. That'll be fun.
She's an action figure.
She really is, actually. Somebody there also said that they love your pink Hawaiian shirt. You're rocking it. You do tend to have a look, like you always have the Hawaiian shirts of some kind of amazing color and pattern. Why did you choose Hawaiian shirts?
Originally, I was working as a bodyguard, and it was a great way to hide your pistol. It was clipped to your belt. Hawaiian shirts, nice and baggy, and you can get to it. But also, I'm an artist, so I love color, and I love the wild patterns. And when I started doing a lot of conventions, it just was a very comfortable shirt to wear around. And now I have over 300 of them. And this, like some of my best shirts, are from a company that I am now absolutely in love with called Big Fun Shirt Company in Eureka, California. They're all hand sewn, and so I have a whole bunch of these. In fact, I'm looking over I'm in a hotel right now. I'm looking over at my closet, seeing a whole line of Hawaiian shirts I will pack. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's pretty cool. Well, we love it. We can always find you. Not only are you not short by any means, but with the Hawaiian shirts, we can always find you in a crowd.
Yeah, basically, look for Bigfoot in a Hawaiian shirt. That's going to be me. Though I have had people cosplay me, which is kind of funny, including there's a woman, El Jafar, I forgot how to pronounce her last name, but she's a little tiny French woman who lives here, a writer, and she cosplayed me once.
How did that work? Was she on stilts?
No. She was tiny. There's a photo of the two of us next to each other, but she matched so well, and even to the point of having a puff of white chest hair glued to her chest, in the V of the shirt. It was epic. I freaking died when she walked into the book signing. I thought it was one of the greatest moments of my life.
Now that's dedication. That's awesome. The horror, when we talked about the horror, your first novel, Ghost Road Blues, in the Pine Deep series, won a Bram Stoker Award. Congratulations for your first book. That's so impressive, by the way. So, and where else can a craft store owner become a hero but in horror? I love that part too. So in this series, you really capture the small town feel of close-knit, marred with suspicion. Like, what research did you do for that novel to actually capture that?
Well, I grew up in Philadelphia, and outside of Philly, there's a small town called New Hope, Pennsylvania, in which my town of Pine Deep is heavily based. And back in the 70s, when I was in high school, a bunch of us would go out there, and it was very farm community back then. So there were these vast cornfields and pumpkin patches and everything else. We'd go out there, and I'm not saying that as high schoolers we ever drank. I would never say that. But we would go out there and have parties in the middle of the cornfields in the middle of the night, tell each other ghost stories. And we were all like tough urban kids, and we were trying to spook each other. And we wound up doing that like over and over again to the point that any little sound from that point on was some demon coming to get us. And I just love that whole area. And unfortunately, with all the infill now, a lot of the farms are gone, the cornfields are gone, and so on. But that it left such a strong sense of place that I wanted to build a town into one of my stories that the town itself, the personality of the town, was a character in essence rather. And also included elements of another town called Upper Black Eddy, which had the best haunted hayride ever.
I love haunted hayrides. They don't have those down south so much. They were so much fun up north.
They don't have, well, I imagine a lot of them took a big hit last year with COVID, but unfortunately the Upper Black Eddy one closed. And so I gave an idealized version of that. I even opened a story with that. And so that small town and its history, which for years New Hope was known as the most haunted town in America. And I thought, well, what a great legacy to be known now. I think Savannah is now the town that has that, or maybe Gettysburg currently has that rep, but New Hope, going all the way back to the pre-colonial times, really had a lot of haunting. So that gave me that sense of place that I built my whole first 3 novels around.
That's fantastic. Let's see. What do we have? We had a couple people that popped in to say hi. We have Bookish21 says hello, and Honeybee Hideout says hello.
Hello.
So if you don't know what their avatar names are here, they'll have to clarify. But otherwise, if you have questions, please put them in. Vicky does have a question for you. She wants to know, has the pandemic given you any new ideas?
Yes and no, but it'll also give me a little bit of agita too, because I mean, aside from all the real world harm in terms of my career, just to answer that question, I had a TV show on Netflix that launched right before the pandemic, and having a show about a plague during a plague, probably not the best choice, even though we did it. We obviously, it was based on something we were doing before. It actually launched before the plague, but the plague did it no favors, and that's why there's no second season.
Are you talking about V-Wars?
Yeah, Ultimate V-Wars. And also I had a comic book that I wrote in 2019, but it was published in, the gap between 2019 and 2020, called Pandemica, which was about a plague being released, a lot of political games playing and all sorts of things. It was a little too predictive, and that didn't help that. In fact, even delayed the last issue of it for quite a while. So the plague, it hasn't been a big factor in stuff I'm writing. It's referenced in the new Joe Ledger stories, and it's referenced in a couple of other stories. I don't think I'm going to do a pandemic novel about COVID-19. I feel like I've already done that in the other pandemic books I've done and so on. The only the biggest upside, and it sounds weird to say that, upside of that is during the social isolation, I got a tremendous amount of work done because I had nothing to do but sit and write all day long.
Yeah, it helped, right? Some people got more work done, and some people were like, I can't work. It didn't seem to be too many in between. So I'm glad you got work done, because we need entertainment. So I'm excited. Yeah, well,
last year I wrote 4.5 novels, 12 short stories, and some comics. This year I'm already on my 3rd novel for this year. So yeah.
Fascinating. Well, I had a question, because you don't just write novels. As you've said multiple times now, you also write comics. Which one came first, the novels or the comics?
Oh, the novels came first. I actually, before novels was nonfiction. I did that since 1978, magazine articles, nonfiction books. Turned to fiction in 2006. Started writing comics in 2009 after the editor-in-chief of Marvel had read one of my novels, Patient Zero, called me up out of the blue and said, "Hey, do you want to write for Marvel?" It's like, let me think about that. Do I want to write for Marvel? Yes, I did. I dove into writing comics, and I've been doing it ever since.
That's so fun. What different challenges do you have writing comics than you do writing novels?
Well, it's a completely different process. I mean, a novel, you're alone, and you're the god of that universe for the time that you are writing the book, and you don't have input. You're not really, generally not discussing the plot points and so on. With comics, it's very much a collaborative thing. I mean, yes, you pitch the idea, yes, you write the script, and yes, you give the art direction, saying, how many panels and what goes in each panel. But the editor is usually a lot more hands-on in comics, and then you have also the artist, the letterer, and the colorist, each of whom is playing their A game as well, and they have a lot to say. The artist, I remember one of the early emails I got from my artist very gently asking if, much as he loves all of my dialogue, do you think the readers might want to see the art at some point?
You're like, hold on, novelist, I'm working on it.
Yeah, so, I have a lot of space to put in, dialogue in my novels, but in comics, you really have to not only dial back the writing, but allow for the art to be as equal a partner, maybe even more so in the storytelling. So you tell the artist what you want, but you have to give the artist the actual page space to do that. So you have to trust that they're going to be able to take your story and tell it in a way that's unique to their skill set. The same with the colorist, and the same with the letterer, because those are actually very highly specialized skills, and it is very much a team in the comics world. It's closer, I've been told, to writing an hour of television. a comic is about an hour of television in terms of the script, the art direction, everything else. So, which also is a collaborative process where, you're dealing with other professionals who, you have to respect the skill set they're bringing to it.
That's incredible. I have no experience with that, so thank you. Oh, we have a question from Florida Kevin. He wants to know, is there anything off limits for you in horror writing?
I'm not sure if it's off limits. There are things I would choose not to do. Like I wouldn't ever want to write something where like a rapist or a child abuser is written as a sympathetic character. That would that would be an ugly thing to even want to consider. Yep. I'm not a fan of torture porn. I'm not a fan of bizarro fiction. I don't say that's bad. I'm not the audience for it. I have quite a few friends who write that stuff, and they put their whole heart and soul into it. And great, because there's an audience that wants it. I just don't happen to be that audience. But there are things I won't do in my own fiction only as a preference. I was an abused child, so I'm not going to celebrate abusers. I taught women self-defense for 35 years. I'm sure as hell not going to celebrate the abusers in that circumstance. Mm-hmm. However, elements of that may be in the story as something somebody has gone through, and that explains their character growth and arc. So you can make reference to abuse of various kinds without necessarily needing to showcase it. And it's one of the reasons I don't like the torture porn genre, movies like Green Hell and Hostel and so on, because it doesn't feel like the violence and the misogyny that's going on screen is there to make a point. It feels like it's there to entertain. And to me, that kind of aggressive content is not where I'm ever going to go. Great for the people who do it, not for me.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, it's a good question. Bookish21 wants to know, what is the funniest typo you ever wrote?
I
don't know. This could be a long list. I don't know. This might take a while, Bookish.
I just want to say that I was talking about a character who was a bit of a runt, and I misspelled, and it was not an R that started that word. So I'm just going to leave that one there. It got a raised eyebrow. Like, I got a note back from the editor who was editing and saying, "Surely you don't mean that."
We're not using this word,
oh
right?
My God, no. Yeah. So I'm glad I have people who proofread my stuff, because we writers tend to look through our own typos, and it's really, really good to have somebody there checking that stuff out. Yeah.
100%. Even as an editor, if I developmental edit something, I pay someone else to copy edit it because I've already seen it. So yeah, good point. And that's one of those things that the programs won't catch. It's like, yeah, that's spelled correctly. Next. Let's see. We have Sheldon Higdon says hello.
Hello, Sheldon.
Did I miss anyone else? Kate
Very
Jones.
good friend of mine.
Kate Jones, maybe?
What's that? Kate is one of the greats. She's one of our most talented writers right now, and also just a really cool person who I like a lot.
That's
so
awesome.
Nice that some of the good guys are joining us. So my cronies.
Your cronies are meeting my cronies. We're gonna have a good time tonight. I hope everyone bought their beverage.
Yeah.
We brought beverages. Let's see. Dennis Crosby wants to know, the zombie apocalypse is here, and you get to choose a team of 5, real or fictional, to help you survive. Who do you choose?
Oh, well,
you should have said not Joe Ledger, because that's too easy, and then make him choose 5 others. I mean, that's cheating.
Yeah. Joe Ledger's already been in the zombie apocalypse. So I want to pick 5 people. I definitely will pick 5 fictional people.
Okay.
I'm going to pick Alex from the Resident Evil films. I'm going to pick Batman, because the gadgets, the tech, and the cave, Black Widow, Hawkeye, and the Punisher.
Nice. Wait, Hawkeye Pierce? Or, I mean, there's multiple Hawkeyes.
Hawkeye. Marvel's Hawkeye.
Okay. But, Hawkeye Pierce can make you the martinis. I mean, you need that too.
I can make a martini myself. Okay. I'd rather have somebody out there killing the zombies while I'm sipping the martini. Good shot, Hawkeye. Oh, another good shot, Hawkeye. Do a drinking game every time he gets one on the head.
That's how we're going to go through the apocalypse. Sitting on the roof, drinking martinis, watching Hawkeye at work. I could do that. That'd be okay.
I don't think wrong with that plan at all. I think that's a real plan.
Yeah, I like that. That's my new answer too. Let's see. Steven says he needs a beverage. Yes, Steven, go get your beverage. You know how this works. You're not a newbie. Spikette wants to know if we have never read any of your books, which do you recommend reading first?
Well, see, that's a tough one because I'm multi-genre. It really depends on what you like. So it's a multiple answer. If you're into American Gothic vampires in small town America, the Pine Deep trilogy. If you like weird science of action and sarcasm, the Joe Ledger series, starting with Patient Zero. If you like a good old-fashioned zombie apocalypse, starting with how from the first bite and explaining how it happens, the Dead of Night series. If you're into what happens after the zombie apocalypse, growing up in the world beyond, it's sadly that's also the name used by the thinly disguised version of my Rotten Ruin books that is the spin-off of The Walking Dead, which
really? I haven't seen it.
Well, it's not legally based on my Rotten Ruin, but
I understood that. Yeah.
And I don't want to slam Walking Dead because I mean they've been on for so long, they've had to come up with new ideas, but it's clear they are influenced by material by other writers. So those would be, and if you like, straight science fiction, Mars One, there's all sorts of stuff. If you just want a standalone that's not part of a series, I recommend either Glimpse or Ink, my two standalone weird horror stories.
I've not read Ink yet, but Glimpse was incredible. Really well.
Those are my two favorite books actually, Glimpse and Ink.
I love Glimpse. So Ink is on my list. I haven't got there yet, but Glimpse. I mean, I can't even talk about it because it's hard to not talk about it and give things away. I don't know how you marketed this one. So tell people how did you market? What's the elevator pitch for Glimpse?
For Glimpse, woman recovering from drug addiction, looking for the child she gave up for adoption when she was 16. Begins to get the hint that the child is out there and is looking for her, but the child may be hunted by something very dark and very dangerous.
Nice. Well done. You've done that a few times, huh?
Once or twice.
That's right. Oh, I want you to know, we have a big debate. We haven't had a zombie expert on yet, and we have a big debate on one of our communities about whether zombies can climb or not. So what is your opinion on this? Can zombies climb, Jonathan?
Well, here's the thing about that. I need to preface this, but unlike vampires, werewolves, and so on, zombies are not part of folklore. The zombies that we talk about are the flesh-eating ghouls from Night of the Living Dead forward. Nothing to do with the religion of voodoo or the Haitian beliefs or anything else. So because they're entirely fictional, you need to decide which set of rules you're going with. If you're going by the Romero rules, yes, because in his early stories, his early movies, zombies use tools. The graveyard zombie ran after Barbara's car, ran it downhill but still running. But by the time of Day of the Dead, zombies were relearning how to speak and use tools and weapons. By Land of the Dead, they staged an invasion, showing that they were capable of unified action and so on. So since Romero, who was a friend of mine, did intend for his zombies to evolve, the answer is yes, they would eventually be able to climb. The fast zombies, of course, there's no reason they couldn't. And I don't include the 28 days later zombies because they are not zombies. They are fast infected. Based on another thing George Romero had created, the crazies, which is the homicidal infected subgenre. But the World War Z zombies, like Max Brooks, there's no reason. In the book they were slow. In the movie they were fast. The movie version there's no reason they wouldn't be able to climb because they transition very quickly from human to the zombie, and if they can run upstairs, they can climb.
Yep, fair. Well, you won Smashy over. Yep, H&H is happy. So you've got some fans. I'm waiting for people to moan about it. Come on now. I just want you to know.
I've talked about this sort of thing with George Romero. We had a lot of long conversations about this. We were co-editing Nights of the Living Dead, an anthology we did of stories set around Night of the Living Dead. And if George said it, then that's as far as I need to go with it.
I think that's fair, but I want you to know that Steve H&H says this is an incredibly well thought out, researched, and considered wrong answer.
Well, it depends. Like, some you're choosing. Walking Dead zombies are stupid as avocados. They're not going to be able to climb anything.
Oh, you got to love the audience.
I do.
Florida Kevin says zombies can't social climb by themselves, but they can marry up.
That's cute. Yeah. Isaac Marion, who did Warm Bodies, would love that answer.
Yeah, probably, right? My gosh, Jonathan, you know everyone.
I do. Well, everybody writes zombie stuff. Yeah, I mean it's a community of, because we've all been on panels together. We've all been in these events together, and there may have been drinks and loud conversation where we solve the problems of the zombie universe. Yeah,
just a few, some things here and there. I love it. Well, I'm wondering, so we talked about your V-War series, and it's very sad there's not a second series. But I'm wondering, is there any other TV that you've watched lately that you've really gotten into? Oh,
yes, there's a bunch of stuff. I just started Altered Carbon finally, which is not hard, but it's really, really good. Mm-hmm. I'm all over the place with what I watch on TV, too. I rewatched The Kingdom, which is a fantastic series on Netflix. It's set in the feudal era of Korea, but it's a zombie story. And it's scary and just dynamic. I watched both seasons of that again. I rewatched Black Summer because the new season's coming up again. Just watched a very strange show called Raised by Wolves, which is science fiction about a couple of androids raising children. Fantastic stuff.
I'm gonna have to look that one up. What was that called again? It's called
Raised by Wolves. There's only one season of it. I don't think they're going to do a second, but the first season, it's mind-bending. It just goes all over the place. What am I watching right now? Oh, I just started watching last night. I'll finish it today. Is Project Power, about a drug that gives you superpowers for 5 minutes, with Jamie Foxx and Joseph Gordon-Levitt. And that looked like it was going to be a lot of fun.
That does sound fun. Is that a show or a movie?
It's a movie. It was, but I think it was originally released as a Netflix flick, Netflix film. And I'm also systematically going through everything that has ever been done with Sherlock Holmes. I just watched all the Jeremy Brett Sherlock Holmes, and now I'm in the Benedict Cumberbatch. It's a favorite genre of mine, Sherlock. I've written some Sherlock stories over the years.
Gotta love Sherlock. So much there to unpack. And see, I'm wondering.
And I'm listening. I just finished listening to the Stephen Fry complete Sherlock Holmes on audio. His reading of it is superb.
I love Stephen Fry. I'm gonna have to look that one up.
If you're an Audible member, it's in the free plus catalog.
Ooh.
Like 50 hours, something like that.
Wow. I don't know how you get any writing done, Jonathan.
I listen to audiobooks while I drive mostly.
Clever. There you go. That'll do it. Well, now that travel is opening up, as more of us get the Fauci ouchie, as we like to call it, what convention are you most excited to attend this year?
Oh, DragonCon.
Yes!
It's my favorite. DragonCon is always my favorite con.
Yes.
Even though, I live in San Diego and I go to San Diego Comic-Con and, won the Ring Pot Award and all that. DragonCon, I was introduced to DragonCon by a great friend of mine who sadly has since passed, L.A. Banks. She was a paranormal romance writer. We went to middle school together. She was a force of nature, one of the greatest human beings. And she said that I had to go to DragonCon, and I had never heard of it before. This is 12, 15 years ago, I guess now, 14 years ago. So I reached out to them, and I've been a guest almost every year, coming back this year. And it is 80,000 of my close personal friends in costumes, and all the writers hang out at the Westin Bar every night and talk shop. And
Friday night, Cursed Dragon Ship Writers meet and greet.
Yeah. And, writers drink, God bless them. And we party. In fact, the podcast I had, Three Guys with Beards, was born over drinks at DragonCon. I had, James Moore, Christopher Golden, and I were all sitting around talking, and we made some joke about how we should all do it. We know so much about the horror world, we should do a podcast. And I said it as a joke. And then a couple of days later, James Moore says, okay, so we're set up to start the podcast. We just need a name for it. It's going to be on this platform. Like, what podcast?
You're like, wait a minute, was I drinking when we talked about this?
I was probably like third martini in. So I'm just glad I didn't suggest a podcast where we were all naked in a tub, So it became Three Guys with Beards.
That's awesome. Yeah, James Moore, besides my wonderful supportive mother, James Moore was the first person to buy my book. Because we were there at the Westin at DragonCon, and I had books with me, my first published book. And he was like, yeah, I'll buy one. I was like, you are amazing. You don't even know me. It was really, really kind and generous.
And that's James Moore in a nutshell right there. Jim is he's the kind of people we should breed if we want our culture to get somewhere useful. He's good-natured, good-hearted, has your back.
Yeah, he was a great guy, I have to say. I didn't even know what to do. Let's see. Yeah, we're big DragonCon people around here. Let's see. There was a question. Where did the question go? Oh, there it is. Maya has a question. She wants to know, what is your favorite Sherlock Holmes story? And it could be Doyle's or it could be someone else's. It doesn't have to be original.
Blue Carbuncle. Without it, I mean, that doesn't even. I mean, Musgrave Ritual is great. Baskervilles is great, but Blue Carbuncle. I love the story. It's weirdly sentimental for a Sherlock Holmes story. It has a pretty clever mystery in it, and the Jeremy Brett adaptation of it is I put that on my list of things I need to watch every Christmas because it is a Christmas story. I love that story, and I just listened to that on the drive from Phoenix to Tucson today because I'm moving around a little bit. Listened to that, Musgrave Ritual, and the Five Orange Pips during the drive. Three of my favorites.
Now, had that story with Stephen Fry narrating it. I think I'm on board.
He's amazing.
Let's see. Who's your favorite? Smashy wants to know, who's your favorite Marvel DC character?
Marvel favorite character of all time is T'Challa, the Black Panther. When I was a kid, I was raised in a very racist neighborhood in Philly. And so the only exposure I had was the racist, propagandized viewpoint until I encountered the character of the Black Panther in issues of Fantastic Four. And that started me asking questions, which I was not getting answered at home. So I took to the middle school. When I started seventh grade, I took those comics to the middle school librarian and asked her, and she explained apartheid, the Jim Crow laws, all the things that you need to know if you don't want to be a racist asshole. Mm-hmm. And one of the things there is once you open your eyes and see the truth, you have a choice. You can either close your eyes and pretend the truth is the more convenient version for your racial identity, or you can actually see the world for what it is. And I didn't want to close my eyes again. Roll forward to 2009. Reginald Hudlin, the founder of BET Network, who's a big Academy Award-winning producer, he was writing the Black Panther at the time and had heard me talk about because I just started writing for Marvel, he heard me talk about why I love that character. Mm-hmm. And so as he was stepping down, he went to the powers that be at Marvel and said, look, we know that, you guys have been wanting to do black writers for the Black Panther, which makes sense. But here's the thing: is that character saved Maberry's life as much as it saved, black kids, in the inner cities. He has something to say about that character, and also because I had been teaching women's self-defense most of my life, he decided to throw me an extra a little treat. He had T'Challa get injured in the story, so Shuri had to step up to be the Panther. And in the comics, Shuri is not a super genius scientist. She was basically the Lindsay Lohan of Wakanda. So she had to level up to become the hero and the leader of her own people. So I got to write the feminist Black Panther for 2 years. And I'm pretty sure my father is spinning in his grave at warp 9 because of that.
Well, I can't say I'm sad about that. So good for you, by the way. It's really hard to go against your parents. So good for you.
We collided pretty darn hard.
Well, we're lucky to have you, so thank you. Let's see. Dennis Crosby wants to know, if time travel were a thing, which period in time would you want to travel to and why?
Definitely late 19th century. You had Dickens, you had the Pre-Raphaelite artists, you had Conan Doyle, you had Bram Stoker. I mean, I definitely would want to go there, hang out with all the writers.
H.G. Wells.
H.G. Wells, big fan of H.G. Wells. So yeah, some of my favorite writers and some of my favorite stories are from that era. Plus, the men's clothing, which I want to wear. Granted, not a Hawaiian shirt version of it, but those beautiful suits and hats and walking sticks.
Top hat.
Yeah, top hat. I want all of that. So that's where I'd go, and I think I'd benefit a lot from the conversations with some of the writers who are foundational to me, as they are to many people, in my view of storytelling. Like Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, I think is one of the finest pieces of writing ever done. Most people never read the book. The book is brilliant, and it's not much longer than a novella, but it's brilliant, Yeah. So I want to go talk to those guys, and also, as a multiple recipient of the Bram Stoker Award, kind of like to talk to him. I'm friends with his grandnephew, Dacre Stoker.
That's
but
so
I'd like to
fun.
Talk to Bram and just hang out with him. It's like, dude, you have no idea what you just did with that book.
You have changed the world.
It has changed the world.
It absolutely has. That's fantastic. Let's see. If I missed a question, please write it again. I think we're good, though. You have the most fun answers, Jonathan.
Thanks.
Let's see. Your new. So we talked a lot about horror, but your new series is an epic fantasy, right?
Yes.
What led you to branch out into this creative forum?
A little bit of fate. so here's the thing. I love your hat, by the way. So here's the thing. The very first book I ever bought with my own money when I was a kid was Conan the Wanderer, an old Lancer paperback. So I was into swords and sorcery from the jump, but long before it became epic fantasy. When I was in high school, one of the projects in my advanced placement English class was we had to pitch a book that we thought needed to be added to the curriculum for advanced placement English. And I made a case for Lord of the Rings that got all the way to the school board, and in fact, they added it to the AP curriculum.
That's
so
fantastic.
I have a long history with epic fantasy. One of my favorite series of all times is Nine Princes in Amber by Roger Zelazny. I love the Carl Edward Wagner Kane novels, and Michael Moorcock, who my first fantasy is dedicated to. I have read probably everything he's written, going back to when I first started reading him in 1966. And by the way, he's recently become a friend of mine, which he just gave me an excerpt of the new Elric novel that I'll be publishing in Weird Tales magazine.
I'm going to start calling you Jonathan the Name Dropper. I just want you to know.
Well, it's life has not been boring. I'm just telling you that. So with all that background in it, I was already kind of primed to do it. I've done a couple of epic fantasy short stories, but then my editor, Michael Homler at Macmillan, at the St. Martin's Griffin division of Macmillan, has called me up out of the blue and said, we were having a planning meeting and we want to get more into the epic fantasy space. Your name kept coming up as somebody who's willing to try anything. And I'm like, I'm not sure that's true, but nice, And he said, would you be interested in pitching an epic fantasy thing to us? And I said, sure. And he said, can you give us a pitch in an hour? I'm like, okay. So within an hour, I got a pitch to him. And by the end of the day, we had a deal for the first two of a new series of epic fantasy novels. They want to publish them 6 months apart. So I finished one already, and I'm about to start the next one. And I'm in love with epic fantasy. Plus, I read a lot. Like Patrick Rothfuss, Joe Abercrombie is probably my favorite epic fantasy writer right now. My buddy James Rollins, if you know who he is, #1 New York Times bestselling author of the Sigma Force series, which is weird science thrillers. He's doing epic fantasy now too. So, yeah. I'm all in on epic fantasy right now.
Yeah, Steve H&H loves Joe Abercrombie too.
Oh my God, The Blade itself, what an incredible novel.
Yeah, the Bloody Nine, he says.
Yeah.
Yeah, Florida Kevin too. Yeah, this is definitely the right audience for you.
Oh yeah, these are. Clearly my peeps.
These are definitely your peeps.
We would hang if we were all together.
Well, all of these people almost are going to be at Dragon Con, so this is a possibility.
Weston Bar every night. That's where the writers hang out. Join us.
That's right. It's fun. Let's see. I think, where are we at? We've got 15 minutes. I think we should hit the fast round. Let's do our quick questions. Are we ready?
Sure.
Oh, no, wait. No, not yet. That is what I got distracted by Joe Abercrombie. You know, who isn't? The fantasy, you didn't tell us what it's called. Are you allowed to share yet?
Oh, Kagan the Damned is the name of the first book and of the series. And it's a big, meaty story. And I'm just about to start the second one called The Son of the Poison Rose.
Ooh, that's a great title.
Yeah, unlike a lot of fantasies where, you know, it's patriarchal, the hero was taught how to fight by his mother. His father was more of a politician. His mother was a dangerous fighter. She was a dagger fighter, fought with match daggers, and poison-bladed match daggers. And he had learned how to fight from her. So he doesn't use a sword. He uses daggers.
Fascinating. That's going to be fun. Definitely picking that one up. So for the quick round, well, not yet, right? But definitely, it's on the list. That's what we have Goodreads for, so we can mark things as TBD. Yep. TBR. Not TBD. Yeah, TBR. So for our quick lightning round, we have our hard-hitting questions. So our first one is, what is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Mint chocolate chip.
Good choice. Hot or cold weather?
In between. I like moderate weather. That's why I moved to San Diego. Never too hot, never too cold.
I'm still going to say that's cold weather, but that's okay. What part of your daily routine is an absolute must?
There are two things that are absolute must for me every day. I start off every day by thinking about the things and the people I'm grateful for. You know, it's not a religious thing. It's just I've been fortunate over the years to have encountered really important people in my life. I mean, some of the writers I met who, like Ray Bradbury and Richard Matheson, who mentored me for no reason other than basic decency. You know, people like that. The people in the writers community who embraced me when I came in here. The readers, you know, friends who aren't celebrities, who don't get a chance to get a pat on the back, who are just kind-hearted, good people. So I really focus a lot on people who do good for others without it being that they get a pat on the back for it. You know, genuine good-hearted people. So I start my day with that, and also every day that I'm writing, I start off by reading poetry aloud. Especially, I like a lot of 19th century poetry. It gets me into the feeling of how the brevity of poetry lends itself to fiction, because you get to the point of it. You find the metaphor rather than 5 pages of exposition. So those two things are things I do every day, and I don't skip them.
That's fantastic. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
He's like, that was easy. What is your least favorite chore around the house?
Vacuuming. I hate noise. I hate loud noise. But I like other housework, you know, dishes, laundry, things like that. I'm okay with. Just don't like vacuuming.
It's fair. And what is your favorite style of music?
Blues. Though when it comes down to individual players, I tend to go off of that, because Leonard Cohen, Tom Waits is my favorite of all time, Lorena McKenna, and some others. But when I just need to play some music while writing or just driving, it's going to be the blues, classic blues, older blues, Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, Son House, Ferry Lewis. Nice.
We have Tom Waits mentioned.
You guys have frozen, so I don't know if you can hear me or not. So this is kind of weird, because both of you are frozen, and I have no idea at all if I'm talking to myself.
You're not. Can you hear me at all?
That's interesting.
You can't hear me? Uh-oh.
Okay.
Typo, what do we got?
But,
yeah, are you back?
Can you hear us?
Maybe.
I can now. You were frozen for a little bit there.
Uh-oh. I don't know what happened. I'm going to blame hotel Wi-Fi.
Yeah, well, that's hotel Wi-Fi in Arizona, so you know you're not top of the line there in terms of Wi-Fi.
Well, you know, we were at the last lightning round. We just went too fast, and the Wi-Fi couldn't keep up.
There you go.
That's
didn't
what
have
it
the
was.
bandwidth.
Mm-hmm. But they were agreeing with jazz, or with blues, excuse me. So
jazz, you know, acoustic jazz, Joe Pass acoustic guitar. Well, big fan of that.
Nice. All right. So I think that's it. So we have our last question. Jonathan, now that you have all of these new fans, where can people find you and your work?
Well, the easiest way to find me is spell my name right. People want to spell my name with a Y in the middle. They want to do Maybery. Resist that temptation. It's M-A-B. It's like Maberry connected, but it is pronounced Maberry. JonathanMaberry.com is my website. If you're a writer, and if there are any writers out there, there's a page on my website called Free Stuff for Writers. Go grab what you need. It's all downloadable, free stuff. But I'm also on under that name on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. I'm easy to find. And if anybody wants a signed copy of any of my books, Mysterious Galaxy Bookstore in San Diego is my local store. And they'll let me know when orders come in that need to be signed and personalized. I just nip over and do it because it's close.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you so much. For everyone now, as you read Jonathan's work, please make sure to review it. It's the best gift you can give your author. And also, please review this podcast wherever you get your podcast. You can also follow us on Twitch or subscribe to us on YouTube. And we do want to thank our subscribers on Twitch. We have D.H. Dunn and William Galaney and 8 of 9. And I think that's it. So, did I miss anyone, Zafo? One of these days, I'll get a list.
We'll have a list eventually.
Oh, Roger.
Roger, yep.
And Roger. There you go. So thank you so much for our subscribers. You're the ones who help us keep the lights on. And we do want to hope to see you next week at 8 p.m. Central Time on twitch.tv/CursedDragonship when we interview DJ Baden. We'll see you then.
Bye.